The alien princess was taking her last breath, until a human reached out. The princess was already on the floor when I reached the doorway. I am Marin Solis, field medic, corporal, and the only human aboard the Velkari diplomatic vessel Athon Reach. I had been assigned to this mission as a symbol, a gesture of goodwill, something to show the Velkari Concord that humanity respected their customs and wanted a seat at the table. Nobody expected me to do anything. Nobody expected me to matter. They were wrong. Princess Athali lay on the polished obsidian floor of the treaty chamber, her long silver limbs curled inward, her gill slits clamped shut in violent, rhythmic spasms. Every few seconds her entire body locked up, arched and released. Her bioluminescent markings, which I had watched glow a rich, warm gold during every ceremony since we departed, were fading, not dimming, fading. The color was draining out of her like water leaving a cracked bowl. Around her stood 26 Velkari dignitaries, healers, guards, and courtiers. Not one of them was moving. They were praying. I could hear it through the translator bead tucked behind my ear, a low, cycling hum that the bead rendered as something between a farewell and a forgiveness. Their medicine had no answer for this. Whatever was happening to Athali had no name in Velkari biology. She was dying in a way they had never seen, and so they were doing the only thing left in their understanding. They were letting her go. I was already moving. Out of the way, I said, and the translator bead converted it into the appropriate Velkari register. A healer twice my height turned to look at me with those flat, silver eyes. I did not stop walking. I dropped to my knees beside Athali and opened my kit. Her skin was cool and slightly textured under my fingers, like fine-grained stone. Up close, the spasms were worse than they looked from the doorway. Her gill slits, 3 on each side of her neck, were clamping and releasing in a pattern I recognized immediately. Not random organ failure, not cardiac, not respiratory collapse in any way I had trained for. A cramp. A massive, full-body muscular cramp. I said it out loud before I could stop myself. That is a cramp. The healer behind me made a sound that the translator bead rendered as something like confused distress. Cramps, it turned out, did not exist in Velkari physiology. Their muscle tissue operated on an entirely different mechanism. The concept was genuinely foreign to them. It was not foreign to me. Let me be clear about something. Humanity has been part of the galactic diplomatic framework for 11 years. In that time, every species we have encountered has found us charming, resilient, and mostly harmless. We are the enthusiastic new members at a very old table. We bring good food, interesting stories, and an apparent inability to give up on problems that every other species considers permanently closed. Other civilizations find this trait equal parts endearing and baffling. In this moment, it was the only thing standing between Athali and death. My species has been treating full-body muscular crises for centuries, specifically, a human condition called eclampsia, a catastrophic seizure of the entire muscular system, most often in pregnant women, most often without warning, most often in places with no advanced equipment and no time to wait for help. We developed a treatment for it over 200 years ago. It is simple. It is cheap. It works. Magnesium sulfate. I had 3 doses in my kit because I always carry 3 doses of everything. Old habit. My first instructor at the field medic program told us that if you only carry 1 of something, you will eventually be in a situation where you needed 3. She was right every single time. The problem was delivery. Velkari do not have veins in the same locations humans do. Their vascular structure is distributed differently, more like a branching root system than a highway network. My standard injection sites were useless. I needed a vascular adjacent tissue bed, somewhere the compound could absorb fast enough to matter. I had 45 seconds before another spasm hit. I knew because I had been counting the pattern. I ran my fingers along the base of Athali's neck, below the lowest gill slit, where the skin was thinnest, and the tissue underneath had a faint blue pulse to it. There, not a vein, but close enough. The tissue was warm and the pulse was real and the absorption rate was something I could only estimate, which meant the dose calculation was a guess built on a guess built on desperation. I drew the dose. I adjusted for her body mass, roughly 140 kilograms, longer than me but less dense. I injected at the base of the gill stem on the left side of her neck, angled inward at 30 degrees, and pressed the plunger slowly and steadily because slow and steady was the only thing I had any control over. Then I sat back on my heels and I counted. 1, 2, 3. The room was absolutely silent. Every Velkari in the chamber had stopped their prayer and was watching me with those silver eyes, and I had no idea if they were going to let me keep trying or drag me away, and I decided not to think about it. 4, 5, 6. Athali's body locked into another spasm at the count of 11. I held my breath. It released faster than the previous ones. That could mean anything. I told myself it meant the magnesium was working. 7 more seconds. She breathed. Not a gasp, not a dramatic inhale, just a slow, shuddering breath that lifted her chest and fell away. Then another. Her gill slits unclamped, opened slightly, and stayed open. The spasms did not come back. And very slowly, starting at the tips of her fingers and moving up her arms like dawn moving across a valley, her bioluminescent markings began to return, faint gold, then brighter, then the full, warm, living gold I had watched her wear every day for 3 weeks. Nobody in the room moved for a long time. Then the lead healer, a tall, pale individual whose name my translator rendered as Vessel of Knowing, took 3 slow steps toward me and stopped. They looked at Athali, who was breathing steadily on the floor. They looked at me, and they said something that took the translator bead several seconds to render, which usually meant the concept did not have a clean equivalent in any human language. What it eventually gave me was, you reached into the space between death and life and pulled. I am a medic, I said. That is the job. Later, in the ship's medical review chamber, I sat across from a panel of 7 Velkari healers and explained everything. Magnesium, eclampsia, 200 years of emergency obstetric medicine developed in field hospitals and rural clinics and the back seats of vehicles, in every corner of a planet full of humans who had no choice but to figure out how to keep each other alive with whatever was available. They listened to all of it without interrupting, which was unusual for them. Velkari healers are precise and skeptical, and they do not typically defer to sources they consider junior. At the end, Vessel of Knowing looked at me steadily and said, "You are a species that learned to heal because you break so easily." I thought about that for a moment. Yes, I said, that is basically it. 3 hours later, a guard came to my quarters and escorted me to Athali's recovery room. She was propped up on a low platform covered in a material that looked like dark water, and felt, she told me later, like cool sand. Her markings were fully restored. She was tired but alert, and she looked at me for a long time before she spoke. She asked why I moved when everyone else stopped. I thought about the honest answer. Not the polished one, not the diplomatic one, the real one. I did not know it would work, I said. I just knew that doing nothing definitely would not. Athali was quiet for a moment, then she reached out, slowly, giving me time to step back if I wanted, and placed one bioluminescent hand against my wrist. Her markings shifted. The gold deepened into something older and warmer, a color I had not seen her wear before, and the translator bead was silent for a full 3 seconds before it rendered what her gesture meant. Kinship between those who have faced death together. I did not step back. I let her hand rest there, cool and faintly glowing against my skin. And I thought about how 11 years ago humanity was handed a seat at a very old table and told to sit quietly and not cause trouble, and how sometimes the most important thing in any room is the one person who does not know how to stand still and do nothing while someone is dying. I am Marin Solis, corporal, field medic, and the lowest ranking person aboard the Aethon Reach. I will never be the smallest thing in a room again.